Hey y'all, welcome back to Bowls with the Bard. My name is Cakes. I am your host, and today we are talking to members of our cast of Cymbeline about the character of Imogen. Bowls with the Bard Stoned Cymbeline opens this Thursday, February 22nd, and runs through February 25th at the Coffee Joint in Denver. If you're in the area, we would love to see you, hit a vape with you, and enjoy some Shakespeare with you. But before we enjoy the play together, we thought it would be fun for you to get to know some of our company and for you to get to know the amazing leading lady who makes Cymbeline what it is. But first, as always, I'm gonna get a little high. All right, y'all, we are back with Alison Talvacchio. Alison, who are you playing in our production of Cymbeline?
I'm playing Posthumus Leonatus and Clotton, who doesn't have a last name, I suppose.
I don't think so.
Although at least he gets a name, unlike the Queen.
Yes, women.
Right. She can't have a name. She's just the Queen.
Evil women in
Which in some
particular.
ways I think is kind of badass.
Yeah, I like it. It makes her feel very much like the evil queen in like Snow White, you
Well,
know?
she says at the very beginning, like, don't judge me like, I'm your stepmother, but I'm not like those stepmothers, like how everyone thinks about stepmothers.
Except I
Except she is.
absolutely am.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, I love your pairing in our production. It's very fun to watch you bounce between the straight man and the clown. But we're not here to talk about either of those characters or the queen today. We're here to
Right.
talk about Imogen. So what thoughts have you brought today?
Well, it's interesting. I originally, it's kind of hard to think of her in this production, especially as the only woman, because there's so many female identifying folks, playing male characters, like myself. But I was thinking recently, and mostly in relation to my character, who is her lover. One of my characters is her husband, and how much his objectives are tied to proving himself worthy of Imogen's love.
Hmm.
And it's said at the beginning, the first scene describes these two young lovers as like just great-hearted people. Everyone loves them. Like we just, they're just so nice and good. So off the bat, you come in with this sense of like, okay, these are sort of these images of like perfection. They're kind of put up on this pedestal, and then they both like lose trust in each other. Well, mostly Posthumous loses trust in Imogen, and doubts everything. And his whole journey is about, for me, like sort of discovering a way for himself to like love himself and like become a person in his own right outside of his relationship with Imogen and outside of being tied with her. And then in the end, spoilers, like that is what lets him be able to come back to that relationship, and actually like appreciate it. And I think for Imogen, I mean, I'm speaking as more of an observer of her character, that she doesn't seem to live in that world that people have like placed her up on, which I really love about her character. Like she's very down to earth, and treats her servant as an equal, treats the mountain men, who's like sort of her found family, as equals. And I mean, the line that gets me with her is when they say, "Oh, we're friends now," and she's like, "What, friends? Oh my gosh." And it's just like this, it's so beautiful, and she never loses hope. like I think a lot of Shakespeare's characters, especially the female characters, sort of get caught up in all of this drama, all of this despair that's happening around them, and they just sort of throw up their hands and say, I'm gonna kill myself now. Um, and she never does that on purpose. Um, so I think that's something I admire about her character. I do think that in terms of like what's written for her, there's a lot that happens to her that she doesn't really have a lot of control over. That all the male characters in this play sort of decide what happens in the play, and she, like, as best she can, rolls with it and like keeps kind of going, and but doesn't get a lot of say in how her journey goes. She just sort of has to figure it out based on what's been like happening to her.
That's very true. That's like I wish she got kind of like a relationship like Helena from Allswell gets with the king, where like she gets a scene at
Mm,
the end where she's like, okay, this is how I would like things to be. We're gonna
yeah,
dictate things now. But yeah, no, she really does just go like, oh, you're sorry, Kay, and you're sorry, Kay. Okay, end of story.
right, right. Well, and at the end, she has all this despair about, she's sort of lost this found family in the battle sequence, and she's lost the man she thought was her husband, she thinks is dead. And um and yet she still comes back to the court, and she still stands in front of the king, and then all hell breaks loose. Like everyone takes their mask off and is like someone else. But again, that's all like stuff that happens to her. She doesn't necessarily like create that ending for herself, but she does at least get to that point. She like pushes herself through all the craziness to arrive there and be able to let these sort of good things come about for her.
God, and in this play, there's so much craziness to push through.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
wild
And there's so
ride.
much traveling too. I was thinking about the timeline yesterday.
I think I have seen, I could be so wrong about this, but I think I've seen that Imogen is the character who like walks the farthest in Shakespeare.
That's interesting.
Yes. I'm not 100% on that though.
Yeah. Well, they do describe coming from horse. So I think they did take a horse to Milford Haven, but she talks about how
Okay.
like how long it's been since they, got off their horses and walked to wherever, the spot is where that scene takes place. But yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll have to
Yeah,
double check that.
she has quite a journey.
She really does. Lots of highs and lows. Before we wrap up, Allison, do you have any other thoughts you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I will say, like, in this particular production, and part of it's because of, I think, the way the casting worked out. But in this production, Imogen feels very, very equal to everyone else, and probably one of the most level-headed and sane characters in the entire play. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel that level of respect. I feel like every character who interacts with Gracie's Imogen has a
Hmm.
level of respect for her like immediately, which
Well, and
is
she as an actor is so grounded that it really helps. Like I've seen other Imogens be very kind of like, oh, this is happening, and oh, this is happening, and oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And Gracie is just kind of like, well, that happened. Moving on.
yes.
What's
Yes.
next? Bring it, like, which is just like such the right attitude to have, especially around all of these male characters, at least mine, that are like, that are the ones that are going, oh my gosh, what's happening? Like, you know, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
She's a
it
very like grounding energy to all of us.
yes, it makes an argument for being like, okay, but the play is called Imogen, right? Like,
Right.
really?
My partner actually thought that Cymbeline was a female character and was the main character,
Huh.
which is an interesting like default to go to
Mm-hmm.
because now I want to go come back to him and be like, what do you think like the role of female characters are in Shakespeare plays? Because none of them have title roles ever.
Yeah, real.
So like, why did you jump to that conclusion? I'd be interested to hear what he says.
The name Cymbeline?
Yeah, I
I
thought
don't
it was
know.
a like female character.
Interesting. It's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, neither a woman nor the main character.
Yeah.
Though
But the
Marty
king,
brings,
so it has to be the title.
yes,
Right.
yes, and Marty definitely brings some main character energy
Oh yeah.
to our
Yeah.
Cymbeline. It's like the first time I've ever seen Cymbeline have main character energy. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's the first time I've ever like cared about that character
yes.
because like Marty's brought such a nice like pathos to it. Yeah, but like humor as well. And yeah, quite a roller coaster for Cymbeline too.
For all of you, considering the doubling that you're doing,
Yeah.
you're all on roller coaster rides, but
Yeah.
it's really amazing to watch.
Awesome. Well, hopefully everyone else will agree.
Yeah, I know. We opened this week crazy.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for doing this, Allison.
of course.
All right, y'all. We are back with Natalie Edwards. Natalie, what is your role in our production of Cymbeline?
So I am the stage manager in this production of Cymbeline.
Hell yeah, you are. I don't know what we would do without you. You are so incredibly organized. Your emails keep me functioning as an artistic director, so I appreciate you very much.
Uh,
You're welcome. Natalie, what thoughts about Imogen have you thought today? Have you brought today?
I think a lot about Shakespearean women who are incredibly quick to cross-dress to solve their problems. I think about As You Like It, Rosalind. Like I've that's a role that I've personally played as an actor before. And coming into this production of Cymbeline, I hadn't read Cymbeline, I hadn't seen Cymbeline. Like this was
Ooh.
like a very, very new one for me. And all I knew was the character of Imogen. Like that's the only picture I had coming into this because she does get that comparison to Rosalind a lot, as a woman who goes into this like gender journey as she's like trying to solve the problems that she encounters in the story. And Gracie, our Imogen for this production, has like really brought a very fun like gender to this character, like this Imogen. And I think about that a lot.
Yeah, we get a real transformation when Gracie puts on Fidele.
Mhm.
I feel like you don't always get that. Like you get the change of clothes, but you don't always get a total change of character.
That like real like attempt to embody, like, and I love it. And Gracie does an excellent job with it. And it's also like I don't know if it's necessarily just like our cut or just the fact that this is one of Shakespeare's shows where he just was like, I'm gonna make it everything. I'm gonna shove all of these different rabbit holes into this one story, and that like gender exploration is one of them. But it's like very fascinating to like see how it comes into the storyline as like a solution to the issues. Because it's a story about war and it's a story about patriarchy and like seeing the way that that like ties into Imogen's storyline is like fascinating to me.
Yeah, I have had it said to me on this podcast before that Imogen is like the one of the women who dresses up as men who like doesn't come up with the idea by herself, like someone else
Mhm.
kind of gives it to her.
That's
And
fascinating.
what I love about the performance of gender in our production is like Gracie's Imogen or Fidele feels kind of like a woman's idea of what a man, quote unquote, should be.
Or like what
But
a man like thinks a man should be.
yes,
It's
yes,
very, very interesting.
yes.
I like love one. I love that we have this cast that's all like women and non-binary. And like I just think that like it's an incredible like pathway to see like Imogen's perspective on all of it. And that's fascinating. I didn't know that. I like had never heard that she's the one who doesn't come up with the idea on her own because
Yeah.
it's Pisanio.
Yeah, it really is. It is. And it's now that you like bring up that we have that all female and non-binary cast, I think like what's even more interesting about how Gracie puts on Fidele is like none of the rest of our femme presenting cast put on
Mhm.
masculinity in that way.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's very, very fascinating to see. And I'm excited to see how it continues to grow through our rehearsal and performance process because it has been incredible to watch and to think about and to like dissect.
Yeah, ditto, ditto. Just the few rehearsals I've been to, it's been really cool to watch it like
Mhm.
grow and mold. I'm excited. Like we've got 2 more weeks to grow, and I think it's going to be
Mhm.
something really fantastic.
I think so too.
All right. Well, do you have any other thoughts you would like to throw in before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this, Natalie.
Of course.
All right, y'all. We are back with Steph House. Steph, who are you playing in our production of Cymbeline?
Hey, Michaela. Yes, I am playing the Queen, which is Imogen's stepmother and Cymbeline's wife. And I'm also playing one of the brothers that were lost, Arviragus.
Awesome. And what thoughts about Imogen do you have for us today?
It's hard when you're thinking of women in the Shakespeare canon not to compare them to like the big ones like Rosalind and Viola and any of the ones from like Romeo and Juliet or anything like that. But I think that Imogen is interesting in her own right because she is definitely a woman that takes agency. And Shakespeare kind of has put this has set Cymbeline in a pre-Christian, very archaic society. And so I feel like it's very revolutionary for her to be like, no, this is not what I want to do, and I'm going to go my own way, and kind of forge my own path. And I respect her for that. I think the scene that we see the best in Imogen is actually the scene with her and Giacomo, where you directly see her doing that in real time. Like, no, absolutely not. You're not going to convince me to sleep outside of wedlock. Yeah, and I admire her, and I always as a don't know that I would consider myself completely non-binary, but pseudo non-binary bisexual who I literally the way that I found out I was bisexual was by doing 12th night in high school. Yeah, it's always fun to see one of Shakespeare's heroines dress up like a man and be a man, and it's just always fun with that.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I feel like she's also like a great foil for your character of the queen because your
Oh,
queen
yes.
does a lot of what she does too. She's doing a lot of like trying to snag what she wants.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's obviously very ill-intentioned. Hates calls Imogen a scorpion on her deathbed, which is like I just think that's amazing, and I really want to kind of bring that kind of attitude towards Imogen, even though it's really hard because Gracie's really sweet. But yeah, just kind of thinking of her as like this insect, even like a very the scorpions. When I think of scorpions, they're very combative, and they're poisonous, and like it's not the same thing as calling somebody like a like a stick bug or something like that. No, it's something that is actively in her life that is causing her a lot of anger and frustration and even terror, scare. Like I think that the queen is scared of Imogen,
Yeah.
which is an interesting thing to think about because like I don't think of the queen as someone who is scared of anything, but I think that she is kind of scared of Imogen.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I feel like if Imogen said the right combination of words to Cymbeline in the right context, the queen would be out of there.
Oh, definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely. Awesome. Do you have any other wrap-up thoughts you would like to add?
I just am so excited about this show, and I think that the cast is so brilliant and talented. And I love that Posthumous and Cloten is played by the same person. Alison's so freaking talented. And I kind of wish that because Imogen really does want a very Disney princess kind of. I want to be with my husband that I've known forever and I've loved him and everything. I wish that we had more scenes with those two kind of just expressing that, and we get to see that a little bit more. But we don't. But that's fine. We can fill in our imagination.
Agreed, agreed. Well, thank you so much, Steph, for coming on the show. I
Sure.
am so excited for everybody to get the chance to see you. The contrast between your two characters is very fun to watch.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
You're
And I
welcome. You're
appreciate you
welcome.
having me.
Of course. All right, y'all. We are back with Paige Flores-Medrano. Paige, what is your role in our production of Cymbeline?
Hello. My role is the position of director. I'm directing this shindig.
Yeah, you are. You're freaking crushing it. I come in and laugh my face off at every rehearsal. Um, Paige, what thoughts do you have on Imogen for us today?
What don't I have? I guess my original thoughts that I had a week ago were very different from what I have now because
Ooh,
of
okay.
all of the journals that I've been reading up on how the world of academia and the world of feminism looks at Imogen's character. And a lot of it just has to do with the debate of is Cymbeline a product of show expressing how heroines and feminism is just utterly squashed by the misogyny of the male characters in this world of Cymbeline. And it really just makes me so upset that in the OG production, she really just was rolling with the punches of her husband, her father, and every character that is not her brothers or Belarius, and just trying to figure out the best of the situation, which makes me rightfully upset. But I'm happy with the modern interpretation that we have of her.
Do you want to talk a little bit
Just
about what
because
that looks
it,
like?
yeah. So a lot of it for me in the modern interpretations is now that we have a full grasp of squashing the patriarchy and particularly with this production of having a near all female and non-binary cast, we really get to see how can we express Imogen's heroism without having to roll and punch with the utter grossness and symbolism of her being asleep and being figuratively and symbolically raped and just turning it into something much less vile and disgusting. But Imogen overall is my favorite of the characters just because she is the central moral compass of our story. And she's the one to remind us that, yeah, this is pretty nonsense. What's going on here? It's all pretty nonsense. And that's why I love with her modern interpretation of taking back that moral compass as opposed to just being a Deus Ex Machina character control to guide the three complicated stories.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I feel like Gracie simultaneously finds places that she grounds Imogen that really highlight the insanity going on around her, and then has also found really lovely places to make her so goofy, but not in the same outlandish way the other characters feel. Like her goofy moments feel very human and relatable, and I love that.
That's what I love too, and that's why I every time I watch Gracie perform in any scene that she's in, I'm like, there's just gonna be something that I didn't think of, and she thought of all entirely on her own. And I'm amazed that she was able to find those moments, because I struggled to find those moments with Imogen and interacting with anyone, especially when it comes to Imogen and Pisanio. That entire relationship dynamic still eludes me because it's thoroughly complicated.
Yes, it is. It is. And it's the two of them deal in a lot of drama in a production that, like, we're trying to lean into as much of the comedy as possible. Uh, yeah.
Which kind of works. I mean, in every introduction of this script, it's always the debate of, is this a comedy or is this a tragedy? And if you lean into one side, how far do you dip into the other?
Yeah, when you suggested this play, I actually thought it was on the comedies list, and then I was like, "Oh, no, this is technically considered a tragedy." Like, I don't know why, because the only characters who die are sold to us as like the bad guys, and we end with like a reunification and forgiveness, which is typically comedy, but like, yeah, weird delicate balance with this play.
I think that uh that's partially a fault of just plays that are written but in the middle of a writer's transition scene. A lot of journals that I was reading about this show dictate that it was in the transition period from the first set of Shakespeare's work into the later half when it's fully seasoned. So I think that might just be a fault of what happens when you write an outlandish show that is in the middle of your transition. It's going to be wild, it's going to be hectic, and everyone's going to debate about it for future generations to come. But I will agree, it is very wild and outlandish that I thought, oh, okay, this is just gonna be nice and goofy, and then reading it, I'm like, oh, this is not goofy whatsoever. But that's the beauty of it. You could lean one side into it and make it entirely the opposite, and it'll still work somehow.
I think it really does. Like, I feel like the moments at which I'm laughing at just how weird and wild this production can be balance out very well with the scenes that are more earnest. And they make me appreciate the scenes that are more earnest more as well.
Agreed. I'm very happy with this cast and their input and grounding those earnest scenes. It's just nice and seasoned. It's a good work. It feels like warm chicken noodle soup. I should have eaten before we started recording this, but it feels like a good warm chicken noodle soup, which is what I want everybody leaving from this show. Is I just want them to feel like we took them on a trip in our favorite rocket ship, and now we have a happily ever after, kind of. The ending still baffles me, but it's the ending. It's when everything comes together and is supposed to be wrapped up nice in a tiny little bow.
Yes, yes. We unfortunately cannot unwrite that Imogen does forgive all of these people really quick for some reason.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main thing that I'm still baffled at Gracie being able to execute is how could you find the motivation to forgive your husband who tried to murder you, your stepbrother, yeah, stepbrother who wanted to be your husband and wanted to rape you, and how could you forgive every other man that symbolically raped you when you were not conscious? There's a lot of sleep
It's
in
a
this
lot. Yeah,
production. There's
that's
so much
true.
ickiness that happens asleep.
And Imogen is asleep for like pretty
Oh,
much all of it. Like Posthumous gets a moment, but Imogen
but
gets experience like shit happening around her and to her a lot while she has no agency.
she has no agency, she has no voice of advocate, and it's wild. Because with Posthumous's sleep dream sequence, it's entirely morale support. Good things happen to Posthumus when
Hmm.
he is asleep. He gets
Yes.
visited by a god.
Yes. And then like goes on to help win a war and everything works
Oh,
out for him. So
ah, men,
not a lot of
lovely.
trauma to unpack there.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. It's just we're just gonna move on past from all that trauma. But
Loved.
it, love Imogen. I'm glad that she has become something new from what her original intent and purpose was.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting to see, hopefully in the future, that someone takes Imogen's story, as well as the other heroine figures who kind of go through what she does, because there's a little bit of tail end. I don't want to say conspiracy because that implies it's a secret. Similarities between Imogen and other heroines and other where she just copy pastes and does what they do for their protection and their needs. So I would like to see someone take all of the heroines from Shakespeare and make a revival story for all of them. Just get them all in the same room to talk about it.
Well, we can't quite do that, but I do feel like at the very least, we've landed on an excellent Imogen for stoned Shakespeare, and that makes me
Abs
happy.
to anyone producing this show in the future, mustaches, sticky mustaches, get them in all variety, shapes, and kinds, because boy, does it adds to the comedy. Unless you're taking it seriously, then do what you will.
Yes, sticky mustaches and cereal. It's a vibe.
Uh, always bring two kinds, because you're gonna get tired of one immediately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, before we wrap up, Paige, do you have anything else you would like to add about Imogen?
Anyone who is playing Imogen or will be playing Imogen, take your sweet time finding her motivations, because even in the original, it was difficult to find out why she is the moral compass. And that is a wish I do not wish upon anyone. But if you ever get landed in this role, take your sweet time. And if someone gives you shit about it, tell them you look at this role and you tell me how I'm supposed to behave in this scene rationally.
A
To all the
vibe.
Imogens, good luck out there.
I think that's good advice. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Paige. I'm so happy that you were on the show, and I'm so excited for people to see what you have put together.
Oh, I am very excited. I'm very happy that you took the chance on me for this production. It's amazing. It's wonderful. We're creating theater.
I'm grateful as well. I'm sure we'll be seeing your face around Bowls with the Bard more than just this in the future. So. All right, y'all. We are here with Linda Swanson-Brown. Linda, who are you playing for us in our production of Cymbeline?
So I am playing technically six different characters. The two major ones are Valerius, the father in the cave, and Cornelius, the doctor. We also have the First Lord. We have the father ghost, Cecilius. We have a new sort of stoner character we've added at the beginning that was, I think, originally one of the gentlemen, and then in the script we got it was Cornelius, and we decided as a group it didn't make sense for him to be those characters. So I've named him Keanu in honor of the great Shakespearean actor Keanu Reeves.
I love it.
Sorry, I have a cat wandering through. Now I can't remember who my other character is, but it's fine. I'm playing a lot of characters. Those are the major ones.
It's amazing what y'all are juggling. It really impresses me, like every time I come into the rehearsal room. So we're here to talk about Imogen today. What
Yeah.
thoughts did you bring for us?
So I mentioned this to a couple of people at rehearsal the other day. I've been reading a book called Unlikable Female Characters by Anna Bogutskaya, who is a film critic and programmer in the UK. And one of the things she talks about, she has sort of the different types of unlikable female characters, and she talks about how usually in film and TV, when you have an unlikable female character, she has to be punished. Very often she has to die. I was thinking about that in terms of the queen in our play.
Huh.
You know, we have the two main villains of the queen and Giacomo. Queen has to die horribly off stage. Giacomo gets off scot-free. Giacomo gets forgiven. So that was my first thought in this play, not to do with the character of Imogen specifically, but
fascinating.
right?
Yes. Wow.
Like, is what the queen does that much worse than what Giacomo does?
No, not really.
Not really.
She's not really,
Anyway.
I mean, Iacomo's successful in what he does. She's not really
Right?
successful in anything.
Right? So I thought that was an interesting women in the play, women in Shakespeare in general often don't fare well.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about Othello and how Iago also gets away with it all while Emilia and Desdemona have to die, who are basically innocent. But getting back to Imogen, I think, you know, I saw two productions of this play when I didn't really know anything about it. And in one, it was a very like classical production. Imogen was just a very innocent, pure character. In one, it was a modernized take where she was very much a like part of a London street gang. All the war at the end was a kind of Romeo and Juliet style street fight rather than an actual war.
Huh.
But in both instances, she was maybe didn't have quite as much agency as you would like her to have in terms of making her own choices. Gracie is doing such an amazing job playing Imogen. She's such a delightful human being, but she's really found the absolute humor at the heart of Imogen, the mad humor at the heart of Imogen. But I feel like she makes choices for herself in regards to what she wants from Posthumus, what she doesn't want from Cloten and Giacomo. She really takes a stand for herself, and I really love that Gracie's found that aspect, and the like trimmed down version of the script we're using has found that aspect, and Paige's direction has found that. I think it's really delightful to see Imogen as a more independent character in this play. And I think partly it's because even though most of the other characters are written as men being played by actors who present and identify as female, I think that gives Imogen a little more power with the other characters surrounding her.
Yeah, I feel that.
I really love the strength that Gracie has found in our Imogen and the independence.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I agree. I've seen her played very like one-dimensionally.
Yeah.
And I also agree. I like Gracie makes me laugh, and Gracie does such a great job finding the humanity in the character.
Yeah.
So in those moments when you're not laughing, you really feel for her.
Yeah, the very serious scene that they found between Imogen and Pisanio in the middle of the play is just stunning. I hadn't seen it since they reworked it until we did it Wednesday and Thursday this week. And oh man, it's heartbreaking, the stuff that they found in there, the choices that Imogen and Pisanio both have to face in that scene of how to solve this dilemma that Imogen doesn't see a future for herself without Posthumus, and the way that Pisanio just digs in and says, wait, before we go killing you, let's see if we can't find a better solution. I love that scene a lot, watching it the last two nights.
I do too. When you talk about agency, that's a great place where Gracie has found agency for her. Like, she is so firm in her want of that in that scene that I think at the beginning, I'm like, holy crap, how is Pisanio going to talk his way out of this?
Right. Right.
Like, she is so resigned to this happening. Yeah, she is really fascinating. She makes this decision to like go out into the world on her own when the kind of woman she is wouldn't do that, like,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. Well, and it's always an interesting balance with Shakespeare taking him sort of out of his era, because obviously he was writing to a very specific era in history. And I think people with varying degrees of success have found ways to modernize his work. But that leaves you with the question of the way that most of his women behave is not doesn't sit well with modern sensibilities. And I think we found a really good balance that Imogen should be subservient to her parents, but she wants to follow her heart. And that does mean that she has to be a little subservient to her husband, but she's found a way to do that without just making herself a doormat, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Linda, do you have more thoughts you would like to add before we wrap up?
I will throw this in at the end and you can trim it if you don't want it in there, but you had posted on social media about you all didn't set out to cast this play with an all female or non-binary cast. That's just who showed up. And I love that you took that approach. I can't tell you how many callbacks I've gone to in Denver where you see just 3 or 4 times as many talented women as men, and then the cast list comes out and you go, oh, they couldn't see that these roles that were written for could be played by women either as men or they don't need to be men by the dictates of the script. That's just how they were cast. And I love that you all decided to go this route. And I think you put together an amazing cast. Not tooting my own horn, but I think our whole cast is so fantastic. And I'm so glad that you picked these people.
No, thank you. I resonate with that. I am also an actor and have been in so many of those similar situations where it's like, wow, every woman that I just read at this callback for, amazing. And most of us are not going to get this job because they're going to cast down gender lines, and that's what it is. I feel like we live in an age where when you cast something like all female and non-binary and you go into it knowing that there's like a camp of people who are like, well, shouldn't you cast the best people? Like, isn't that who you should be casting? And like the beauty of this audition process was like, undeniably, we just get to say that we did. Like the best people who read for those roles were the people who got them, and they just so happened to be an all-female and non-binary cast, and that's amazing.
Well, thank you for being open about that, and thank you for including me in this group. I'm having a blast working with all of them.
Of course, and I'm so glad to hear that. It's weird for me not being in the room, so it's nice to hear that it's not breaking down.
No, it's not. Absolutely. This is a very collaborative cast, and we have a very collaborative creative team to go with it. And I think it's been an amazing process.
Awesome. That makes me really happy to hear. Thank you so much for doing this, Linda. If you enjoyed today's episode and you want to know more about Bowls with the Bard, you can follow us at the handles either on your screen or in the description. And tune in next week as we talk about the importance of translations in Shakespeare. Until then, bye all.
1,000 sighs to save. Oh, lay me where sad true lover never find my grave to weep there.